Before art, before science, there was imagination, the invisible force that turned dreams into reality. Welcome to the series of Driftaway Tales. My today's video is very special. That is not a tale. Rather, it's about imagination facts. After watching it, you can get better understanding of stories. Chapter 1. The Spark Within. Birth of Imagination. When the first human looked up at the night sky thousands of years ago, something extraordinary happened. The stars were not just lights scattered across darkness anymore. They became symbols, stories, and dreams. One spark inside the human mind turned still images into living tales. That spark was imagination. Imagination is the silent engine behind every word, invention, and idea. It allows us to see not only what is, but what could be. Scientists say that our brain is wired to fill gaps, to connect pieces of reality and create meaning. When you see shapes in clouds, faces on rocks, or entire cities while daydreaming, that's your imagination at work, blending truth and fantasy. 1. The ancient beginning. Our ancestors once painted on cave walls long before they learned to write. Why did they do that? Because their minds could see what wasn't there, a hunt that hadn't yet happened, a god they feared, or a hope they wanted to share. Each painting was a window into their thoughts, a way to freeze imagination in color and form. That was humanity's first language. Not words, but images born from the mind. From those caves to the temples of Egypt and the myths of Greece, imagination evolved into culture. It made humans storytellers, creators, and dreamers, unlike any other species. 2. The brain's canvas. Inside your skull lives the most powerful studio in existence. The prefrontal cortex, the temporal lobes, and the default mode network. These regions of the brain work together to create imagined realities. When you close your eyes and picture a flying horse or an unseen planet, neurons fire in the same way they would if you were seeing something real. Your brain doesn't always know the difference between reality and imagination, and that's why imagination can move us emotionally. Artists, writers, and inventors all use this natural magic. A painter imagines a picture before brush touches canvas. A scientist imagines a world before discovering a law. Even you, when you picture tomorrow's breakfast or conversation that hasn't happened, are using the same ancient power, the child's universe. Every child is born an artist. Before they learn facts, they live in a world woven by imagination. A stick becomes a sword. A cloud becomes a dragon. The floor becomes the ocean. Psychologists believe children's imagination trains their problem-solving abilities. It teaches them how to create multiple realities, to what-if their way through the unknown. Sadly, many adults lose touch with this gift as they grow older. School, work, and the pursuit of practicality slowly silence the voice of wonder. But imagination never dies. It just waits for permission to return. 4 dreams. The theater of the mind. At night, our minds become filmmakers. Every dream is a private movie directed by imagination without the limits of logic. You can fly, speak to the dead, visit lost worlds, because your dreaming brain ignores physical laws and listens only to emotion. Dreams are proof that imagination doesn't need waking hours to live. In fact, many great ideas have been born from dreams. Einstein's theory of relativity, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, and even the melody of the Beatles' Yesterday. In the dreamscape, we meet our fears, hopes, and secrets. It's where the conscious and the subconscious shake hands. Imagination here becomes both storyteller and healer. 5. The power to build the invisible. Human civilization itself is an act of imagination. Before there were cities, there was the idea of shelter. Before money, there was the belief in value. Before laws, there was a vision of justice. Everything around you, from the phone in your hand to the language you speak, was once someone's mental picture. Imagination is not a luxury. It is a blueprint. It allows scientists to predict the shape of atoms, engineers to design bridges, and children to believe they can become astronauts. It is the invisible architect of progress. 6. When imagination becomes reality. Every invention begins twice, first in the mind, then in the world. The Wright brothers imagined a flying machine long before the first airplane took flight. Leonardo da Vinci drew designs for helicopters centuries before engines existed. Jules Verne imagined submarines before they were real. What connects them all? Vision, the ability to see the unseen. We often call such people geniuses, but in truth, they are dreamers who never stopped listening to the voice of imagination. They treat the impossible as not yet possible. 7. The light and the shadow. But imagination has two faces. It can create wonders and also fears. The same mind that invents cures can also invent wars. Nightmares, paranoia, propaganda, all are products of imagination turned dark. This is why wisdom must guide creativity. Without empathy, imagination becomes chaos. With compassion, it becomes art. Our minds can create monsters or miracles. The choice is ours. As writer J.K. Rowling once said, imagination is not only the uniquely human capacity to envision what is not, and therefore the foundation of all invention, but it is also the power that enables us to empathize with humans whose experiences we have never shared. 8. The inner fire. When we imagine, we step beyond time and space. We can live multiple lives, build invisible worlds, and experience emotions that reality may never offer. That's why we read stories, watch films, or sit under the stars thinking about what might be out there. The universe outside is vast, but the one inside your mind is infinite. Imagination feeds on curiosity. Every why and what if you ask adds fuel to that invisible fire. And like fire, imagination can spread. When you share your vision, others catch the spark. This is how humanity grows, one idea igniting another. 9. The science of wonder. Modern science still cannot fully explain where imagination comes from. Neuroscientists can map brain waves, but not the soul behind them. Yet they know that imagination is deeply tied to memory, emotion, and creativity. When we combine what we remember with what we feel, our brain rearranges fragments of reality into something new, a story, an invention, a piece of art. It's not randomness. It's organized dreaming. Think of imagination as a bridge between logic and magic. One foot in the known, one in the unknown. That bridge is where humanity stands, curious, restless, and alive. 10. The endless story. From the first cave drawing to the latest virtual world, imagination has been our greatest companion. It allows us to see through walls of time, to shape tomorrow before it arrives. Every great civilization, invention, poem, and revolution began as a daydream in someone's mind. And maybe that's the truest definition of being human, to imagine. As you finish this first chapter, take a quiet moment to close your eyes. Picture something impossible, a floating city, a forest made of music, a version of yourself who has no fear. Hold that image. Feel it breathe. That is your imagination saying, I'm here. Let's begin. Chapter 2, Dreamscapes and Daydreams, the worlds we build in our minds. Close your eyes for a moment. You are standing in a place that doesn't exist, yet it feels more real than anything you've ever touched. The air glows with strange colors, gravity forgets its rules, and you meet faces that belong to memories, fears, and wishes all at once. Welcome to the dream world, the kingdom of human imagination. One the nightly architect. Every night when you fall asleep, your brain begins to weave a story. It picks fragments of your day, a voice, a scent, a half-forgotten worry, and turns them into moving pictures. In this secret cinema of the mind, you become the actor, the director, and the audience all at once. Scientists call this process REM sleep, but poets call it the soul's adventure. Your brain, even at rest, is wide awake in another way. The subconscious mind becomes the artist, rearranging reality like clay. A locked door in your dream may represent a hidden emotion. A flying leap may express freedom your waking self craves. Dreams are imagination's purest form, uncontrolled, unfiltered, and entirely our own. 2. The science of dreaming. For centuries, humans believed dreams were messages from gods. Today, science gives them another meaning. They are neurological rehearsals, practice sessions for life itself. When you dream, your brain simulates danger, tests emotions, and replays problems to prepare for reality. That's why you sometimes wake up with an answer to something that troubled you. Your mind has already worked it out while you were asleep. The limbic system, which controls emotion, stays active during dreaming, while the logical prefrontal cortex quiets down. That's why dream worlds feel emotional but irrational. Time bends, logic breaks, but feelings remain sharp. It's imagination freed from the chains of reason. Lucid dreams, conscious imagination. Have you ever realized you were dreaming and then controlled what happened next? That's called lucid dreaming. In that moment, imagination and awareness fuse. You become both creator and character, able to shape the dream like a painter inside their own canvas. Some people use lucid dreams to overcome fears, to face monsters of the mind. Others use it to create art, music, or stories. The surrealist painter Salvador Dali famously napped with a key in his hand, so he'd wake up the instant he began dreaming, capturing ideas straight from the border between wake and sleep. He called it the slumber with a key. For him, imagination lived in the space between worlds. 4 daydreams, the imagination of the awake. But you don't have to be asleep to dream. Even while awake, your mind slips into quiet wanderings, imagining conversations, replaying moments, inventing futures. These are daydreams, and they are not a distraction. They're the creative engine of the human mind. When you daydream, the default mode network of your brain activates, the same system used in creativity and memory. It helps you connect unrelated ideas, explore what-if scenarios, and build emotional rehearsals for life. That's why daydreamers are often visionaries. Albert Einstein once said, "Imagination is more important than knowledge." He wasn't being poetic, he was describing how daydreaming helped him visualize the bending of space and time. 5. The subconscious playground. Your mind is not one single room. It's a vast mansion with many locked doors. The conscious mind handles logic, but behind it lies the subconscious, the endless hallway of dreams, memories, and hidden creativity. That's where imagination is born. The subconscious never sleeps. It watches, collects, and connects. It remembers the shape of clouds you saw at 6 years old, the smell of your grandmother's house, and the fear of standing alone in the dark. At night or in stillness, it rearranges these fragments into stories and visions. That's why artists often say inspiration comes from nowhere. In truth, it comes from deep within. 6. Imagination and emotion. Dreams and imagination are not random. They are emotional mirrors. When you imagine, your body reacts as if it were real. Think about your favorite food, your mouth waters. Picture falling from a height, your heart races. Imagine love, and your brain releases the same chemicals as when you're actually in love. This connection is why visualization is so powerful. Athletes imagine winning before stepping into the arena. Musicians picture a flawless performance before playing a note. In imagination, the brain rehearses reality so well that it prepares the body for it. The mind dreams first, and the body follows. 7. The imaginative brain. Neuroscientists have found that imagination uses multiple parts of the brain working together: memory, visualization, emotion, and prediction centers. When these systems overlap, the brain creates something that's not real, yet feels true. In essence, imagination is the brain's virtual reality. Every person's imagination has its own fingerprint. Some people think in vivid pictures, some in words, and others in feelings or sounds. That's why no two dreams or ideas are ever the same. We all carry unique worlds inside us, unseen but alive. 8. The gift of daydreaming. Modern life often treats daydreaming as a waste of time, but history says otherwise. Isaac Newton was sitting under a tree, lost in thought when he imagined gravity. J.K. Rowling was staring out of a train window when she imagined a boy wizard named Harry. Walt Disney was daydreaming in a park when he imagined Mickey Mouse. The future always begins as a daydream. When we allow our minds to wander, we give imagination room to breathe. Creativity is not born in noise. It grows in silence, in moments when the mind is free to drift. 9. The dark side of dreams. But imagination is not always kind. It can build nightmares as easily as dreams. Fear, trauma, and guilt often disguise themselves in the language of symbols, chasing shadows in sleep or weaving anxious thoughts in daylight. Yet even these dark dreams serve a purpose. They help the mind process emotions too heavy for waking life. Carl Jung, the great psychologist, believed that our nightmares are not enemies, but messengers, showing us parts of ourselves we refuse to face. He called this process individuation, becoming whole by meeting our inner world. So even the scariest dream is a form of healing, a whisper from the imagination that says, "Don't run, understand." 10. Imagination as a portal. Throughout history, cultures have viewed dreams as portals, doors between worlds. Ancient Egyptians believed dreams were messages from the afterlife. The Greeks thought they came from gods. Native American tribes saw them as spirit journeys. Today, scientists call them neurological events. Yet the mystery remains. How can a few flickers of neurons create entire universes every night? The truth might be this: imagination is not in the brain. The brain is inside imagination. Our consciousness itself may be part of a larger creative field, where every thought shapes reality in small ways. After all, every invention, every story, and every act of kindness begins with one imagined thought. 11. Waking the dreamer. So what can we learn from dreams and daydreams? That imagination is not just an escape, it's communication. It speaks in pictures, metaphors, and emotions. When you listen to it, you understand yourself better. When you share it, you connect with others. Imagination bridges the unseen world of mind and the visible world of matter. Every story told, every picture painted, every song sung is a dream that found a way to live in reality. 12. The endless landscape. Imagine your mind as an infinite landscape, mountains of memory, rivers of emotion, skies of possibility. Every night you wander through it, and every day you build upon it. You may never map it fully, but it is yours, vast, mysterious, and alive. To dream is to travel without moving. To imagine is to build without tools. And to believe in those dreams, that is where magic begins. So the next time your mind drifts while you stare out the window, don't pull it back. Let it wander. Let it build. Because in that quiet space between reality and reverie, you are not wasting time. You are exploring infinity. Chapter 3. The Creative Fire. How Imagination Shapes Art, Science, and Invention. There is a moment, quiet, fleeting, almost invisible, when an idea is born. A blank canvas becomes a story. A whisper becomes a melody. A question becomes a revolution. That moment, that spark, is imagination taking form. Human history is written in the language of imagination. Every invention, painting, or poem began not in wood, stone, or ink, but in thought. Imagination is the fire that turns curiosity into creation. The artist's vision. Before the brush touches the canvas, the painter has already seen the world they wish to create. Vincent van Gogh saw color in emotions. Leonardo da Vinci saw flying machines in the wings of birds. Frida Kahlo turned pain into surreal beauty. Their art wasn't about copying the world, it was about transforming it. When an artist imagines, they enter a private reality where emotion and image become one. Science can measure paint and canvas, but not the invisible spark that moves the hand. That spark is imagination, translating feelings into form. In this sense, every artist is both explorer and translator, revealing landscapes of the soul. 2. The poet's mind. Imagination also speaks in words, through rhythm, metaphor, and dream. When William Blake wrote, "To see a world in a grain of sand," he wasn't describing sight. He was describing imagination's power to find infinity in the smallest things. Poets use imagination to make the unseen visible. Love becomes a flame, time becomes a river, loss becomes a shadow. They remind us that imagination is not only about invention, but perception, the ability to see deeply. Through poetry, the mind learns to feel beyond the limits of logic. That is why poetry survives every age, because imagination is its language. 3. The inventor's dream. Every invention in human history began with a simple question. What if? What if we could fly? What if we could talk across oceans? What if we could reach the stars? The Wright brothers imagined the sky not as a ceiling, but a pathway. Thomas Edison imagined night becoming day through a single bulb. Nikola Tesla dreamed of wireless energy before the world knew electricity's full power. Steve Jobs imagined a computer small enough to fit in your pocket. The imagination of inventors is not fantasy, it's foresight. They see the future hiding inside the present, and they dare to pull it out. For the science of wonder. Science might seem the opposite of imagination, strict, logical, factual, but it begins in the same place, curiosity. Before equations come questions. Before experiments come dreams. Albert Einstein once said, "Imagination is the preview of life's coming attractions." His theory of relativity wasn't born in a lab. It began as a daydream of riding a beam of light through space. Marie Curie imagined invisible rays that no one else could see and discovered radioactivity. Charles Darwin imagined life as an evolving web and saw the unity behind all species. Science is imagination tested by truth. It asks, can this dream survive reality? And when it does, the dream becomes knowledge. 6. Imagination as problem solver. When the world faces challenges, disease, climate, hunger, injustice, the first step is always imaginative. Someone has to picture a better world before anyone can build it. In 1961, John F. Kennedy declared that humans would walk on the moon within a decade. At that time, no one knew how, but the imagination of thousands of scientists turned that dream into the Apollo missions. When Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "I have a dream," he was not giving instructions. He was painting a vision of justice. That vision became a blueprint for change. Imagination is humanity's most powerful tool for problem solving. It allows us to see solutions beyond fear, to invent hope itself. 6. The bridge between art and science. Art and science are not opposites, they are twins. Both seek to understand reality and reimagine it. The artist uses color and emotion. The scientist uses numbers and reason. But both begin with wonder. Leonardo da Vinci drew the human heart as both artist and anatomist. Ada Lovelace imagined machines that could think, long before computers existed. Carl Sagan, the astronomer, spoke about the cosmos with the soul of a poet. Their genius came from crossing the bridge between logic and imagination. When imagination unites art and science, the world moves forward. 7. The child spark in every creator. Ask any great creator how they began, and they'll tell you by playing. Children imagine without fear or limits. A cardboard box becomes a spaceship. A puddle becomes an ocean. True creativity is keeping that child alive inside the adult mind. Play is not foolishness. It's experimentation without judgment. That's how innovation happens. Google, Pixar, and NASA encourage creative play because they know that serious problems often need playful minds. Imagination thrives where curiosity is allowed to wander. 8. Imagination and technology. Every new technology is the child of imagination. The Internet began as a dream of global connection. Virtual reality came from the wish to step inside imagination itself. Artificial intelligence, even as you hear this story, is an attempt to give machines the ability to dream. But technology, like imagination, has two faces. Used with empathy, it connects and heals. Used without wisdom, it isolates and harms. That's why imagination must always be guided by values. A dream without ethics can become a nightmare. 9. The flame of collaboration. Imagination grows stronger when shared. The great cathedrals of Europe, the pyramids of Egypt, the International Space Station, none were the work of one dreamer, but of many minds imagining together. When imaginations unite, individual sparks become a collective fire. Collaboration transforms imagination into civilization. Every song needs a listener. Every invention needs a builder. Every vision needs believers. Human progress is not one story. It's billions of imaginations interwoven. 10. The fire that never dies. The most extraordinary thing about imagination is that it cannot be destroyed. Empires fall, technologies age, but imagination renews itself in every generation. A child drawing on a wall in a remote village carries the same spark that once lit the mind of Da Vinci. Imagination is our inheritance, ancient, sacred, unstoppable. Even when suppressed by fear or doubt, it waits for one brave thought to set it free. And when that happens, when a single mind dares to say, "What if?" the fire returns, burning brighter than before. 11. The alchemy of the mind. Creation is a kind of magic, not the illusion of wizards, but the transformation of thought into matter. You imagine, you act, and suddenly the invisible becomes real. That's the oldest spell in the world, the alchemy of imagination. Every tool, every book, every melody is proof that thoughts have weight. The mind dreams first, the hands follow later. That's how civilizations are born, one idea at a time. 12. The eternal flame. Close your eyes again. Picture a single candle burning in the dark. Now imagine that flame multiplying, hundreds, thousands, spreading across time. That's the story of human imagination. A fire lit in the mind of the first artist still burns in every creator today. We are all keepers of that flame. Every time we imagine, we feed it. Every time we create, we pass it on. So dream boldly, build bravely, because every masterpiece, every world-changing idea begins exactly where you are right now, in the quiet spark of imagination. Chapter 4. The Dark Mirror. Fear, fantasy, and the shadows of imagination. Not all dreams are bright. Sometimes the mind that creates beauty also births monsters. Imagination is not sunlight alone. It is twilight, where light and shadow meet. And in that twilight we find the stories that haunt, warn, and teach us. Every human carries two worlds inside them, the world of hope and the world of fear. Where one builds, the other hides. But both are born from the same source, imagination. The birth of fear. In the beginning, imagination was a survival tool. When our ancestors heard thunder, they didn't understand it, so they imagined gods in the clouds. When darkness fell, they pictured eyes watching from the bushes. Fear gave them stories, and stories gave them power. By imagining danger, they prepared for it. By imagining meaning, they tamed the unknown. Thus, imagination became our first defense, not against predators, but against the terror of uncertainty. Fear was the first fuel of creativity. Two monsters of the mind. Every civilization has its monsters. The Greeks had Medusa, the Japanese had Oni, the Arabs told tales of jinn. The Europeans feared vampires and werewolves. But look closer. All these creatures mirror human fears. Medusa was fear of female power, vampires were fear of forbidden desire, and werewolves reflected the wild beast inside every human. Mythical monsters are shadows of the self, fears that imagination gives a face. We draw them, name them, and through story we gain control. By turning our inner darkness into narrative, we make peace with it. The monster outside is often a mirror of the monster within. 3 nightmares, the language of fear. When we sleep, imagination loosens its chains. Dreams are its play, but nightmares are its warnings. The mind replays our hidden anxieties, falling, being chased, losing someone, in symbols that make sense only to emotion. Psychologists say nightmares are like emotional rehearsals. They help us face what we cannot face in daylight. A burning house may mean you fear loss. A bottomless pit may symbolize failure. A faceless stranger might be your own self, unseen and unknown. It is imagination's way of saying, look at your fear, not away from it. 4. The artist's darkness. Great art is not only born from joy, it often rises from pain. Van Gogh painted his despair in swirling skies. Edgar Allan Poe turned madness into melody. Franz Kafka imagined worlds of endless anxiety and absurd control. Their genius came not from escaping the dark, but from transforming it. The imagination of a wounded mind can create beauty that heals others. When artists express their shadows, they invite us to face our own. As Carl Jung said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. 5. The shadow within. The Swiss psychologist Carl Jung introduced the concept of the shadow, the hidden, repressed part of our personality. It contains jealousy, anger, guilt, but also untapped creativity and strength. When we deny the shadow, it grows powerful in secret. When we face it, imagination helps us integrate it. Think of imagination as a mirror. It reflects both your light and your dark sides. To become whole, you must see both. That's why the greatest heroes in myth, from Buddha to Luke Skywalker, must face their inner darkness before they can bring light to the world. Imagination is not only a gift, it is a responsibility. 7. The beauty of the dark. Dark imagination doesn't always mean evil. Sometimes darkness brings depth, mystery, emotion, truth. Without shadow, there is no contrast. Without fear, there is no courage. In storytelling, we crave both, the terror and the triumph. Horror movies, gothic novels, tragic music, they let us visit fear safely. We scream, cry, and then laugh, relieved. Our imagination gives us danger without destruction, sorrow without despair. It is emotional alchemy. Through dark stories we practice survival, not of the body, but of the soul. 7. The fantasy of escape. Imagination can also create illusion, comfortable lies that protect us. Sometimes we build fantasies not to explore truth, but to escape it. We imagine relationships that never were, futures that never will be, or worlds where our pain doesn't exist. These dreams soothe us, but they can also trap us. Fantasy becomes dangerous when it replaces reality instead of enriching it. The challenge is balance, to let imagination heal without deceiving. Because while imagination can build castles, it must not lock us inside them. 8. The power of story to heal fear. For centuries, people have told stories to face the unknown. Tribes gathered around fires to tell tales of death and rebirth, gods and monsters, light and dark. Each story was medicine, teaching that fear can be named, faced, and overcome. 9 modern storytellers do the same. When we read about Harry Potter facing Voldemort, or Frodo carrying the ring, or Batman confronting his trauma, we are witnessing symbolic battles between imagination's light and dark. These tales remind us the hero and the monster are made of the same fire, and every time we imagine victory, we strengthen our real courage. 9. The science of dark creativity. Neuroscience shows that negative emotions like fear, sadness, or anger can heighten creativity. They push the brain to find new ways to express pain, to rebuild meaning. That's why heartbreak inspires poetry, and loss inspires music. When the heart breaks, imagination repairs what reality cannot. Dark imagination is not a curse, it's adaptation. It helps the human mind find light inside the storm. 10. Technology and the new shadows. In the modern world, imagination has moved into digital form. Virtual reality, horror games, artificial intelligence. We have built new dream worlds that blur real and unreal, but they carry the same duality. A digital monster may entertain, but misinformation or deep fakes can turn imagination into manipulation. Every new technology repeats the same ancient truth. Imagination creates both gods and demons, depending on the hands that shape it. 11. Facing the mirror. To understand imagination fully, we must look into its mirror without flinching. That mirror shows not only beauty, but also greed, envy, and fear. Yet, to see clearly is to begin healing. Art, therapy, religion, all are attempts to turn that reflection into wisdom. When you write your fears, paint your nightmares, or speak your pain, you are using imagination to cleanse. You turn shadow into symbol, and symbol into understanding. 12. The balance of light and shadow. The truth is simple but profound. Imagination needs darkness to shine. The stars would be invisible without night. Likewise, creativity glows brightest against despair. Our fears, when faced, become guides. Our doubts, when understood, become lessons. And our imagination, when balanced, becomes enlightenment. The dark mirror doesn't show evil, it shows depth. It reminds us that even within shadow, light is born. 13. The eternal dance. Across time, imagination has danced between creation and destruction, myth and madness, art and chaos. But both sides serve the same master, growth. Without challenge, the soul would never evolve. Without fear, courage would have no meaning. The shadow of imagination teaches us humility, that we are capable of both great good and great harm. To imagine wisely is to choose which world we build. 14. The light beyond fear. And so we return to where the story began, the quiet mind, alone in the dark. You stand before your own reflection, unsure whether it is enemy or friend. But when you reach out, you realize it's both, the darker half that completes you. Without it, you would be hollow. Embrace your fear, and imagination will turn it into power. Name your monsters, and they lose their teeth. Face your shadow, and you'll find your light. Because in the end, imagination is not about escaping darkness. It is about transforming it. Chapter 5. The Collective Dream. imagination in culture, religion, and myth. Every human dream begins alone, yet somehow the stories we imagine connect us all. Across centuries and continents, people who never met have pictured the same skies filled with gods, monsters, heroes, and heavens. This shared vision is the collective dream of humankind, the imagination of entire civilizations woven into belief, ritual, and art. To the first storytellers. Long before writing, people gathered around fires and spoke of how the world began. Lightning became the anger of spirits. Rivers were living beings. The sun was a god's eye watching over them. Through imagination, nature gained meaning, and meaning gave birth to culture. Every myth was a map, helping people explain what science could not. To imagine was to survive, to belong, to know one's place in the universe. 3. The mythic blueprint. Myths are not lies. They are symbolic truths. They tell how humans feel about the world, not how the world works. The Greek tale of Prometheus stealing fire speaks of the daring mind that seeks knowledge. The Hindu story of Vishnu's endless dream reminds us that reality itself might be imagined. The Norse end times, Ragnarok, capture the fear that even gods are mortal. Across cultures, myths mirror the same psychological pattern: creation, fall, redemption, renewal. This pattern repeats in every religion, epic, and even in modern films, proof that imagination speaks a universal language of symbols. 4. The sacred imagination. Religion is imagination organized into faith. It transforms invisible hopes into rituals, prayers, and sacred art. Where science asks, how? Faith asks, why? And imagination bridges the gap. The prophets, saints, and sages of every faith were dreamers first. Moses saw a burning bush that spoke. Buddha envisioned enlightenment beneath a tree. Muhammad, peace be upon him, received revelation through visions and words that reshaped the moral imagination of nations. Each vision began in the inner world and expanded outward, changing millions of lives. Imagination gave form to the formless, to God, heaven, karma, and eternity. It allowed humanity to reach beyond sight, to feel presence in absence. 5 symbols and rituals. Every religion uses symbols to make the invisible visible. A cross, a crescent, a lotus, a flame, simple shapes carrying oceans of meaning. They focus collective imagination, reminding believers of truths too vast for words. Rituals, too, are acts of creative imagination. Lighting a candle, offering water, bowing in prayer, these gestures transform ordinary acts into sacred poetry. They remind us that reality is partly what we choose to see. When millions imagine holiness in the same direction, faith becomes a shared artwork, a living myth painted by the human soul. 6. The power of shared belief. Imagination is stronger when shared. A single person may imagine paradise. A civilization can build it into cathedrals, temples, and mosques that echo heaven in stone. Belief turns vision into architecture, and architecture turns faith into daily life. Look at the stained glass windows of Chartres, the domes of Istanbul, the carvings of Angkor Wat. Each is a physical, dreamless story told in light and geometry. People walked inside these spaces to feel what they could not see, the nearness of the divine. 7 myth is memory. Cultures remember themselves through stories. The Egyptians told of Osiris, the god who died and rose again, symbolizing the Nile's yearly flood. The Mayans imagined the world rebuilt after each cosmic cycle. The Yoruba of Africa told of Obatama, who shaped humans from clay. Different lands, same longing to explain life's rhythm of birth, death, and return. Myths are humanity's oldest memory banks, storing wisdom long before history began. Each generation retells them, reshaping them for new fears and hopes. 7 collective unconscious. Psychologist Carl Jung called these repeating symbols archetypes, ancient images living in the collective unconscious. The hero, the mother, the trickster, the wise old man, they appear in every culture because they are blueprints of the human soul. When you watch a modern movie or read a novel, you're seeing those same archetypes reborn. Superman is Hercules in flight. Cinderella is Psyche reborn. Darth Vader is the fallen angel. Imagination recycles its own patterns because they speak to something timeless inside us. 8 stories that unite. Shared imagination builds communities. National flags, folk songs, even sports teams are modern myth symbols people believe in together. They give belonging, purpose, and identity. When millions cheer for one anthem, they are, for a moment, imagining the same dream. The danger arises when imagination divides instead of unites, when one group's sacred story becomes another's heresy. History is filled with wars born not from truth, but from conflicting imaginations. Thus, wisdom lies in remembering that all myths are metaphors, not weapons, imagination in art and ritual. From tribal dances to opera, from calligraphy to cinema, art extends the sacred imagination. Every performance reenacts myth, the victory of light over dark, love over loss, order over chaos. When audiences cry or cheer, they join the ritual unconsciously. In this way, art is humanity's universal church, no creed, only emotion. A melody, a painting, a story. Each lets millions share one heartbeat for a moment. That shared rhythm is the essence of the collective dream. 10. The imagination of morality. Ethics, too, are products of imagination. Before laws existed, people imagined justice. Before compassion was doctrine, someone imagined another's pain. Empathy, the ability to feel what another feels, is imagination turned toward goodness. Religions taught parables to make moral truths memorable. The Good Samaritan, the story of Job, the Ramayana, the Jataka Tales, all are moral imaginations made visible. We learn kindness not by command, but by story. 11. The modern mythmakers. Today's mythmakers wear new clothes. Filmmakers, authors, game designers, digital artists. Their gods wear capes, their dragons fly through galaxies, but the function is the same, to explore meaning. The Marvel Universe, Star Wars, anime epics, and fantasy novels are the new temples of imagination. Billions gather online instead of in shrines, yet the ritual remains. Belief, emotion, transformation. Technology has turned imagination global. A single story can now ignite dreams across every border, proof that the collective dream has become planetary. 12. The shadow of belief. But shared imagination has a shadow. When belief hardens into dogma, imagination freezes. When symbols become rules instead of reflections, they divide rather than unite. The same fire that inspires prophets can inflame fanatics. To keep the collective dream alive, we must let it breathe, interpret, evolve, question. True faith, like true creativity, welcomes wonder more than certainty. It says, Perhaps that single word keeps imagination sacred, the living dream. Walk through any city today and you'll see imagination layered upon imagination, from fairy tales to films, from chants to digital songs. It binds us more tightly than blood. We are all storytellers of the same eternal tale, the search for meaning. Imagination is not merely personal, it is planetary. It is how humanity speaks to itself across centuries. The dream that continues. Close your eyes. Picture every storyteller who ever lived. Priests, poets, parents, filmmakers passing a single glowing ember from hand to hand. That ember is the collective dream. It burns in prayers, in poems, in the hush before a film begins. As long as someone believes, imagines, or hopes, the dream will not die. It will change form, language, and color, but never its purpose. To remind us that the universe may be vast, yet it lives inside our minds. Because to imagine together is to be human together. And in that unity, the story goes on.